Yo, what is up, guys? Now, this is just a quick video today where I want to run through, in my eyes, what is probably the most important body part. I know lads feel a lot more confident when they've got bigger arms themselves. I know that they're going to be a lot more respected by other lads when they've got big fucking arms. Shows that they've got discipline, they've got a bicep vein, and they don't look like a simp. And also women. Women love guys with big arms because they're going to feel safe and they're not going to feel like they're just around some guy who's just going to get broken by anyone else that's around them, right? Like, you've got to look like an authoritative, strong, disciplined guy if you want to attract the highest quality women, if you want to network with the highest quality men, and you want to feel confident in yourself. Big arms are like the first thing anybody sees. So, look, guys, if I can build big arms, I'm not saying I have the biggest arms in the world. I don't want to be like a huge classic physique bodybuilder, but I've got big arms, right? I'm not going to lie. I've got fucking decent size arms, right? In terms of someone for like a lifestyle physique, right? And honestly, your confidence is going to be through the roof when you actually work on building them. Okay, like if I can do it, anybody can. I was an absolute pipe cleaner in high school, in college. Unfortunately, everyone says it's a blessing now, and I agree. Like, I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'5", so yes, now it's a blessing. Now I've actually gone through the pain and still go through it on a daily basis of putting in the discipline, putting in the hours, building my physique. I mean, if you've built a top end physique and I'm tall, I'm like, yeah, that's a blessing. But it was the bane of my life. Honestly, being tall young is horrendous because unless you actually decide that you're going to fight through the pain and put on some muscle, it is the hardest thing. You just look like a pipe cleaner. I was literally called lanky 5,000 times a day. I look like a lamppost. And that's what fueled me to get in better shape. I wanted to feel confident. I wanted to feel confident in myself. I wanted to feel confident around women, and I wanted to feel, more confident around lads as well. So I got to a point where I was like, I need to actually take action on everything. So I'm going to run you through the principles. I've written down a few notes here on the key principles that honestly blew up my arms. So I got to the point where I was like, I'm not putting up with shit anymore. I used to faff around, on Google, trying to find all these gimmicks or whatever that people were doing on how to blow up their arms, and it was all bullshit. So I'm here to keep this industry really fucking straight talking and get to the point on what actually works. Like, some of this you might not want to hear, but it's true. And if you actually do it, you're going to progress faster than you've ever progressed before. So take note, grab your pen, grab your paper, and let's get to work. So the number one principle that we basically implemented as soon as I got to the point where I hit a pain line and I actually wanted to make progress, I invested in a coach. And the first thing that changed with my training was the fact that instead of just training like arms, just wishy-washy here and there, or maybe one arm session a week before I went out on a Saturday night, right, was simply training them in isolation more frequently. So it's not just about more volume because, doing one huge arm session is a lot of volume, but there's a lot of waste volume in that, right? Training them in isolation 3+ times a week, I honestly think is going to be a game changer. Well, I know for all of you. So ideally 3 to 4 times a week. Now, how is this going to look if we actually put this into a real life scenario? So let's say you're doing a 5-day training split. You may be doing upper, lower, upper, lower, upper. At the end of every upper session, do a bicep and a tricep movement for 3 sets of each. All right, so 2 movements, 3 times a week, 3 to 4 sets each. All right, it could be that you're doing a push-pull legs, rest, push-pull, rest. If this is you, tag on biceps onto the end of your pull session, 2 exercises, 3 to 4 sets, and 2 exercises of triceps onto both push sessions. That means you're going to hit arms in isolation 4 times per week. It may be like my current split at the minute is actually the Lean Game program in the link in my bio, and that's a push-pull legs, rest, chest and back, and then delts and arms. So effectively I tag arms onto push and pull, And then I've also got arms with my delts on Saturday. So that's a really good split. So just make sure you're not just doing one huge wastage volume session and you're actually hitting them more frequently. All right. That is key to absolutely blowing them up. Now, the second point I want to make is I think a lot of people go wrong here. Like, I don't doubt that some of you guys may already be training them multiple times a week, but where I see a lot of people going wrong is just they get shiny object syndrome. And by that, what I mean is they see some influencer or they get fed up that their arms aren't growing and they're like, what's the best bicep movement? And then 2 weeks later, they see some other influencer saying, this is the best bicep movement. And they just post in shitty videos, these influencers, just because they think, oh, it's new, like it's going to actually get engagement. People haven't seen this before because it's rare, right? And that's true. Rare stuff on social media gets more engagement, gets more views. But if you fall for these traps and you get shiny object syndrome, and you're doing an exercise for 2 weeks and then you change it up and you do another exercise and then you change it up and you're doing another one, you will not progress a tenth of the amount with your arms as you would do if you just stuck to a training plan for like an extended period of time. Now, I'm a big advocate for you should be sticking to a training plan for 16 plus weeks. Like me personally, I will stick to a program that I've written out for myself for 16 to 24 weeks. And like I said, the one I'm following at the minute is the Lean Game program in my bio. And I've just progressed through that. I've been on that program now 20 weeks and I've probably had the most physique development I've ever had in my life. So I can't wait to strip it all back this Friday and get back into prep mode, because literally absolutely blown up my arms and all over physique as well. All right, so make sure you're hitting the same movements. Pick your movements, pick your bicep movements, pick your tricep movements. I'm going to help you with this later on in this video, and then just commit to them and get stronger at them. Number 3, train your bicep in both a shortened and lengthened position. Okay, so some good examples of this basically means if you want to hit your bicep in a lengthened position, a good movement would be a cable curl, but effectively facing away from the cable stack. So the cable's behind you. So basically the hardest point of the movement is when your bicep is fully lengthened this way, okay? Also train your bicep in a shortened position. So a good example of this would be like an easy bar curl or a preacher curl. Triceps lengthened, so an overhead long rope extension. Effectively, you've got the most load when your tricep is fully lengthened. Counter that, we want to hit tricep when it's in a shortened position, so like a cross-body cuff extension. So make sure you've got a good split, all right, of lengthened and shortened position movements. That means you're going to grow the short and long head of your muscle, all right? And it's just going to be good for creating new stimulus and obviously growing tissue all over the arms. So make sure you are getting a good mix. I will, below this video in the description, actually put like a list of bicep shortened movements, bicep lengthened movements, tricep shortened movements, tricep lengthened movements. So you can go in and actually have a look at which ones you might want to pick from, okay? Or on the other hand, if you want me to just, if you basically want to know what are the best ones, they're already in the Lean Game program that's already built out. Next, multiple rep ranges, right? This is so important, I think. Like, honestly, I've had the most growth in my arms when, yes, I've trained them in isolation multiple times a week. Yes, I've hit lengthened and shortened position, but I've had multiple rep ranges in there. So basically specific to the movement. So if I'm in a really fixed position movement, so for example, with my bicep, like a machine preacher curl, or if I'm doing something like a JM press in a Smith machine for my tricep, I tend to go lower rep range. All right. Nothing crazy low, not like 1 rep maxing on arms, but like honestly pushing them, like getting really strong with your arms on these fixed, stable position, stable environment movements, like your preacher curl, like your JM press, and getting really strong in like your 6 to 8 rep range, all right, which is pretty low. A lot of people train arms in a higher rep range, which I'm a big fan of as well. But those stable movements where form is pretty much going to be guaranteed to be nailed, all you have to work on is still nailing tempo and just get strong in a stable position when you're not going to get injured and you can keep the tension in the correct muscle. There's no cheating going on. Then when it comes to your free weight, all right, your free weight and your cable movements, obviously there is a million exercises in free weight and cable. I would then look at just varying up mid-rep and high-rep ranges. So effectively 10 to 14 reps and 14 to 18 reps and maybe even including some drop sets, especially if you're in a gaining phase and effectively, we've got more energy and we want to get as much stimulus out as we can. In isolation movements like training arms, I'm a big fan of drop sets and giant sets as well. Next, make sure we are focusing on progressive overload. Just like any muscle, we need to get stronger, all right? So if we pick a movement, I'm going to give you an example now, like let's say a preacher curl, all right? Let's say the rep range in the program was 6 to 10 reps. How this would work is, let's say we go and we basically want to fail at the low end of the rep range. So out of 6 to 10, that's going to be 6. So we want to pick a weight where we're failing with form, with tempo, with execution around 6 reps. Let's say that was 30 kg on a preacher curl machine, all right? We want to use 30 kg over the following weeks until we get to the high end of the rep range, so 10 reps. So week 1, we may get 6, week 2, we may get 7, week 3, we may get 8, and so on, right? When we get to the 9 or 10 high end of the rep range, we would then increase the load, and that would then bring us back to the front of that rep range, the 6 again. So that's a great way to progressively overload. We get more reps in till we hit the top end of a rep range. We then increase the load and it brings us back to the front of the rep range, and we keep cycling through that motion. If you are getting stronger at movements and you're working your way through with all of your movements and you're getting stronger, your arms are gonna grow, all right? The stronger they get, if we're nailing tempo and execution, they're gonna grow, okay? Now, I'm gonna touch on intention and execution a little bit more. If we're not nailing form with arms, genuinely, I've seen people shifting 30 kgs with hammer curls with the tiniest arms ever, swinging them around like they're on a run or they're fucking starting a lawnmower like some bell end, right? Like, that is not going to grow your arms, right? Start light, but with tension, which still gives you intensity, and then progress from there once you've got the form. So every single set, every single rep, you should be thinking on your mind to muscle connection, all right? So the 4 phases of every movement, you should be thinking, right, should always be about, if you're training bicep, about your bicep. If it's tricep, should be thinking about your tricep. So in a bicep movement, let's say we've got a single arm cable curl. I'm thinking about my bicep lengthening under tension while keeping my joint stable, i.e. not moving my elbow, swinging it around where I'm getting my delt involved or whatever. Elbows stay still in all tricep or bicep movements, okay? From there, I want to feel like my biceps lengthening under tension. It's in full tension at the bottom. Have a slight pause so it's not bouncing around and going slack. I then want to drive up, shorten the bicep under tension, and then squeeze the contraction as hard as I can for a second. So you've got 4 phases: the eccentric, the pause, the concentric back up, and then the squeeze or the second pause. If you're nailing your movements with absolutely perfect execution, with good tempo, I would say 3 to 4 seconds in the eccentric, a pause or squeeze at either end, and then a nice firm pull, 1 to 2 seconds on the concentric on the way back up. So if we're just saying a tempo across the board, 3, 1, 2, 1. So 3 as the muscle lengthens, 1 second in the bottom, but still tight, bicep still engaged or tricep still engaged. 2 back up, squeezing nice and hard, and then squeeze a contraction at the top, okay? I also want you to remember that, guys, isolation is really important. I'm at, like I said, 3+ times a week for me is essential that you want to be isolating your arm movements. However, your compound movements will blow up your arms as well, you know? If we think about chest movements, so chest press, shoulder press, they are going to grow your triceps, right? But vice versa, if you're getting stronger at tricep movements in isolation, that's also going to help your pressing, right? Which is going to help with your chest and your shoulder development. Okay, so arms are going to be great from an aesthetic standpoint, but they're also going to help bring up all areas of your body because it's going to help the compound moves. All right, so everything's always working in conjunction with each other. Likewise, if we're talking biceps, if we're getting really good at pull-ups or a pull-down movement, or we're getting good at a barbell row or a row machine, our biceps will get stronger. Vice versa, if our biceps are stronger, we're going to get better at the movement, okay? And that's going to mean we can bring up our back. Also, stuff like deadlift, big compound pull movements. Your forearms, your biceps, they're in an isometric, so they're basically not shortening or lengthening, but they're braced under tension. They will grow from that, Okay. And honestly, when I've had stuff like big compounds in my program, my arms absolutely fly. All right. Now, this is kind of the training side of things. All right. But I do want you to remember you can have everything perfect with your training. But if your nutrition still doesn't allow or cater and optimize for them to grow, you will not see 1% of the results you would do if you had your nutrition in a good spot. People say, what's more important, training, nutrition? Do you know what? All of it, right? Now, that doesn't mean you got to be perfect every day, but you want to be intentional with every single area of your life, your training, your nutrition, and your recovery. All right. So when it comes to nutrition, you can grow and blow up your biceps in a deficit, in a maintenance, or in a surplus phase. I don't care what anyone says. You can grow muscle in any of those phases, but you must make sure that you're training at the highest quality. So your execution, your tempo, your intensity is there. So we're creating stimulus. And then when it comes to your nutrition, we must make sure, we've got enough protein, first of all. So 1 to 1.4 grams per pound of like lean body mass is essential, whatever phase we're in. And then I just don't go too aggressive either way. In a maintenance phase, if you've got enough protein, you're eating from really high quality whole foods, you can effectively build a bit of muscle, lose a bit of fat, and you'll stay around the same weight, but your body will improve, just slowly morphing forwards. If you're in a deficit, don't go too aggressive. You want to be in a position where you can still recover, can still perform, because that then means you can build tissue whilst losing body fat. And then if we're in the surplus, it means that the mass that we're gaining is going to stay high quality in tissue, not just flooding on body fat. Because if we drive body fat up too high, our insulin sensitivity is going to drop, our partitioning is going to get worse, and we're just going to start gaining a load of body fat. We're going to have to diet for longer, and it just takes us away from being in an optimized position to grow. So focus on the protein and just effectively always stay within 300 to 500 calories of your maintenance either side from high quality whole foods. Okay, guys, the final point I really want to make is, because and this means a lot to me, because I used to be so guilty of this. Ditch the stupid supplements, please. Please save your money. Well, in fact, I wouldn't even say save your money. I'd just say reinvest it somewhere else. This is what I learned quite early on, because back in my high school days, back in my college days, I remember working and getting paid not much at all. And I would spend, because physique was like such a high priority for me, I would still spend all my money on physique, right? Physique and going out, but then I dialed back going out. So I would spend hundreds of pounds a month on some gimmicky supplements like Test Booster, like Mass Gainer, like whatever the fuck was being marketed in the supplement shop at the time. And they all do absolutely fuck all. Optimizing your training programming, optimizing your nutrition programming, making sure that everything is optimized and taking you along that physique roadmap is actually what gets results. Not any of these stupid supplements, all right? None of these stupid supplements are ever used with any of our client results or myself, right? I just want you to know that. So if you're spending hundreds of pounds a month on these gimmicky supplements that you've seen on TikTok or on Instagram, or, there's a big board for in your supplement store, that money, genuinely, when I made the most improvements with my physique, I stopped spending that money on that and I invested in a coach, because that's what actually took me forward. And they're going to get everything aligned with your training, with your nutrition, and with your mindset as well, because that's huge to actually getting results. Because results come from taking action with the correct program, but not just taking action for one day or for 1 week, for week after week after week after week, no matter how you feel. I absolutely hammer mindset as well as the elite level programming with our clients, but I hammer the mindset. All right, because there's always going to be stuff coming up. No one's ever got a clear route ahead of them. No one's ever going to have it easy. Like, we need to build sustainable methods unique for every client. So guys, working on your mindset and working with a coach and just having everything built out is going to get you actual results, not these stupid supplements. And finally, just to finish off this video, before I recap, just stay in the game, right? The amount of times I see people dropping out after, dropping out of their physique journey, a few weeks in or 6 months in, or they get an injury on their ankle, but then they're still not training upper body. I'm like, what's going on? Like, that's never even in the equation. If I get injured, I am still at the gym, unless I was run over and my whole body was in crumbs, I'm in the gym. I'm training somewhere. I don't care if you fucking flattened half my body. I'll be training with my left side. I do not give a fuck. So don't be that guy that looks for your first way out, because all that shows is you're scared of failure, genuinely. So just keep showing up, don't compare, your results from when you stuck it out for 2 weeks to someone who stuck it out for 5 years or for 10 years, right? Don't compare like when they've been consistent for so long and you haven't, and if you have been consistent and you're not planning on dropping out, you just got to be in the game longer with everything optimized even more. So stick it out, stay in the game. Hyper successful people stay hyper focused on the right thing for longer than anyone else. That's the game. It's the aim of the game. The most elite level physiques come from people being hyper focused, being very self-aware, making the investment in themselves and staying in that channel for longer than everybody else. So just to recap, guys, really quick, make sure that you are training arms in isolation 3+ times a week, 3 to 4 ideally. Use the same movements for at least, and training block in general for 16+ weeks. I'm a big fan of 4 to 6 months. Only change it after 16 weeks when you actually just want some new mental stimulus, because it may give you that next wave of motivation, which is understandable. But until you need that after 16 weeks, just keep it. I've run training blocks for 9 months before. Train your bicep in both a shortened and lengthened position. I'll put some examples below. Multiple rep ranges. So when you're in a fixed environment, like a machine, a stable machine, go on the lower rep ranges and work on strength, and then the mid to high rep on the cable and the free weight. Focus on progressively overloading like you would any muscle. Train your arms with 100% intent, execution, and tempo. These need to be perfected if you want to blow up your arms. Compound lifts will also work on your arms, but also working on your arms is going to help the compound and bring up every other area of your body. We must get your nutrition optimized, protein being the main thing, and just not being too aggressive whichever side of maintenance calories we are at, and just ditch the stupid supplements. That money you're investing in supplements, invest in a coach, invest in a specialist to move you forwards. Guys, I hope you've taken a lot of value from this. If you are interested in our Lean Game program, that is the one I'm finishing it actually on Friday, and I've just ran for the last 20 weeks. That is in the bio. If you want to be coached directly by me on a one-to-one basis, there's also a link for our Elite Physique coaching below. All right, guys, if you ever want to drop me a message on Instagram, you got any questions, feel free to shoot me one. I try and get back to as many people as possible, and I will see you in the next video.